Hi you guys, this is Rachel Kirkland here, the Modern Shaman. Thanks for being with me for another YouTube video of the week. If you haven't checked out my website, I always encourage you to go there. My website's themodernshaman.net, and it is a great resource really for anything that is metaphysical, shamanic, psychic, and really just anything on your ascension path. There are services there in case you'd like to sit with me one-on-one for healing sessions, as well as psychic sessions, past life work, mediumship, soul retrievals, ceremony type of work. There's a lot there, as well as all of my teaching curriculum that's online and mentorship programs. So please check it out if you haven't already. Okay, here's the question of the week. This one came in from a live stream a while back, and then I didn't get to it, and she asked me to answer it on the YouTube channel. So here it is. It says, "Hi Rachel, how do you heal the solar plexus chakra? I have self-esteem issues, self-doubt issues. These always seem to come up with my work." I can answer this question in a lot of different ways. Maybe I'll hit it from a few different perspectives, and you can choose which is relevant for you and how that might help you. First, I'm just going to sit back in my chair. I realize oftentimes when I do these videos, I don't know why, but I kind of lean in like I'm talking to someone, or just the energy like pulls me towards the camera. So I'm going to lean back and relax a bit when I first answer this. Because honestly, the way that I got over this, I think this is very common, so no judgment on feeling like there are self-esteem issues that arise when we step into an entrepreneurial or a service work for humanity. It calls up a lot of like, who am I? What do I have to offer? And I had a lot of that dialogue going on in my head at the beginning. And when I started doing a lot of my spiritual work, I always felt like I was learning so much that I didn't know that I was comfortable sharing or being in the platform of the teacher, because I still felt like I had so much to learn, and I still do. I mean, that's the honest space of my heart all the time, is that I don't know everything. I'm consciously aware that there's so much more that I don't know. And so the balance of that humility, which is stored in the solar plexus chakra. Maybe I should say that first as a preface, because for those of you that aren't familiar with why she's asking this question, the solar plexus chakra is the seat of the self. It is the metaphysical center, or the energetic organ that deals with our self-esteem, our self-will, why we are here on this planet, why we do what we do, our worth, and personal sense of purpose and expression, who we are. And so that area, the gut, the solar plexus, y'all can't even see it because I'm like rubbing my belly here on the on the camera, but the frame cuts it out. But that area in particular tends to rise up all of these issues when we step into it. And I am constantly aware that there's so much more that I don't know than there is that I know. And yet, my first piece of advice, or kind of way around this, will be just part of my personal path. So I can share with you my experience, but I can also open up and say my experience is not the experience of everyone. It's completely shared from my personal point of view. So don't take it as universal law of the way that every solar plexus must be cleared and healed. It's my personal experience. And so first I would advise you to set the intention and ask Spirit, how can I heal and clear my solar plexus enough to where it doesn't dominate my healing ability to serve others in this world? How can I heal it enough to get out of my own way? And from my experience, the first thing I did was a hypnosis session, because I had a lot of fear and trepidation about sharing my psychic side of myself. If you know any of my personal story and have been a part of this channel for a while, you know that as a child, really all my life, I used to get premonitions, and I would see them and then they would happen. I would see them and they would happen just all day. This is how my life played out, how the world played out for me. And so I didn't know there was anything strange about it, and I often didn't share them with people. It just, I didn't know it was weird, and I didn't know it was something worthy of sharing unless someone was going to get hurt. And then I would say, hey, don't do that, you're going to get hurt. And then I often got scorned or rejected or said, you're being bossy, telling me what to do, because I didn't have the appropriate languaging to say, hey, I had a premonition and you're about to cut your finger. Instead, I would just say, don't do that, you're going to cut your finger. I would just say, don't, or stop, kind of aggressively and forcibly. So, because I was a child, I was like 5 years old. So, all that being said, during that time, it kind of built up in me an energetic resistance to the visions I was seeing, a frustration with the visions that people were not listening to what I was getting anyways. It didn't matter. It wasn't going to impact them. And then this kind of frustration. And when I wanted to later on in life open that back up again, because I had blocked it for so long that I created an energetic barrier and blockage to them, and the visions stopped coming. I stopped pushing the energy, instead of expressing it, started keeping it inside. That was not good for me. And again, if you know my personal story, you know that they came along with a lot of physical ailments because there was a lot of energetic bottlenecks. So a lot of massive headaches, nosebleeds, my eyes sometimes would bleed. I had an inner ear stroke, tons of energy pressure here. They at one time thought I had a pituitary tumor. Just a lot of physical ailments due to the fact that I stuffed that energy and stopped sharing the vision and that flow that was very natural to my energetic body. When I was older and decided to open that flow back up, the fears came in, and this is where the solar plexus really kicked in. It was like a gut awareness of like, I cannot share this. This is going to have a huge backlash. And because I was a little wiser and aware, I knew that there was something deeper than just my regular human fears from this lifetime. And I asked Spirit, how do I clear this? And Spirit said, go have a hypnosis session. So I had a hypnosis session with the intention of clearing any negativity around sharing my gifts and being of service in this way. And a past life vision came up where I was burned at the stake for my gifts, and I kept saying, don't let them burn me. And I kind of watched myself burn. And then I went through that lifetime and I realized I had a sudden realization of like, that pain was so short. It was such a short amount of time. I mean, juxtaposed to an entire life. When you talk about an entire lifespan and an entire lifespan in this life, the amount of pain and suffering of a death is so short compared to all of your life that you have to live. And it was like I suddenly was aware, like, what a ridiculous fear to be afraid of 1 minute, or be to live my whole life afraid of 3 minutes or even 5 minutes of what might occur. For 5 minutes when I have an entire lifetime. An entire lifetime that I can impact others and heal others and share from the heart and transform lives. And I'm afraid of like 3 minutes or 5 minutes of time of pain. It just like, I don't know what it was, but it clicked. Something clicked in the remembrance of that and how short of a time period that was to actually live through that moment. And it released. And it released physically through me. Again, this is part of my story. Like, I coughed out this like hairball. It was like a blue energetic orb in my throat. I saw it. My eyes were closed in hypnosis, but in hypnosis it looked like this blue orb, and I was coughing literally on the table like a hairball. Like sorry if that's TMI, but that was my story, and it's just my life, my reality, my sharing of what happened to me. Again, that probably won't happen to you, but this was just my physical, everything is very physically expressed in my life. And I had that physical blockage of sharing and opening up. And so the physical manifestation of that came out. I coughed that out. And then I had a sense of freedom to it. So my first piece of advice where I share that whole personal story is that if you are having something that's viscerally holding you back, feeling Not just like I have low self-esteem or I have issues, but it's a blockage. And if this is you, you know it, all right? I knew it. I was like, something's blocking me. Like, I cannot step forward. And if that is you, I would suggest asking Spirit, how do I rid myself of this blockage? And then going to those that have an expertise in that and setting up that intention with yourself, not depending on their expertise, but to be like, this session that I'm going to will unblock me. I knew that ahead of time, even though the hypnotist that I went to didn't specialize in it. She was kind of like, hadn't done hypnosis in a long time, but Spirit said, go, ask her to do it. And so I knew like this would work for me. Know ahead of time, this is gonna work for me. And there's many ways. I mean, I do these types of sessions also, but it can be an energy healer, a Reiki healer, or a trauma healer, a psychotherapist, it can be a hypnotherapist, it can be a shamanic healer, it can be through soul retrieval ceremonies, through past life healing ceremonies. There's a lot of ways to do this with practitioners who specialize in it that you resonate with, that you feel like this is who I'm supposed to do the work with, and I want to heal it and clear it and get it done. And that's my first suggestion if you feel like it's a major block that you need help bringing into fruition for yourself. My second piece of advice would be the strengthening exercises. Like once you have done a clearing of it, it's important to strengthen your own core. And that area of the physical body is called our core for a reason. It stores so much of our sense of identity, and it's our power source, our own central sun, into our energy field. And so any sort of physical activity that strengthens the core is helpful to strengthening your solar plexus chakra, strengthening your sense of self, your power. So strong alignments of power, of postures in yoga that are strengthening to the core, that have a strong alignment into grounding. So any type of primal dance or stomping, any type of physical movement where it's kind of like boxing, things like this that pull from the center of the body. And when I studied martial arts, my father was a martial arts teacher when I was a child. They have the ki, and it's where you kind of push all of the air out of the belly so that if somebody punches you and hits you, you have no air in there, so they can't knock the air out of your stomach. They can't get you. It's all hollowed out. In gymnastics, we call this the hollow body, right? Where anytime you would do a layout or a backflip, you hollow everything out of the body in the posture of kind of bringing all the muscles around that hollowed air area. So in yoga, we have Kundalini yoga has fire breath. These are postural activities and exercises that strengthen the core of the belly, that are utilizing the stomach muscles and the lungs and the practice of the breathing with a strengthened process and the elongation of the spine, feeling tall and literally like I've grown a spine. We've heard that phrase in terms of feeling like you have a strong sense of self and confidence in what you're doing. This is through that elongation of the spine, which is the pranic tube, the light tube where all energy moves and flows, right? So any of those physical exercises that will strengthen the core, that will strengthen you, will help. So my last piece of advice that I will give here is a little bit beyond the self. This is my favorite. But essentially reminding yourself that it's not about you anyways. This is the irony of how spirit works, is that as much as they are using you as the channel and as the conduit to flow this energy through to others, to heal others, to inspire others, to challenge and encourage others, it's still not about you. And so that's a beautiful space. I come to that space all the time, and I went to that all the time before sessions when I first started doing this in a public manner. Because when I first did my work, I did a lot of stuff kind of not necessarily secretly, but I didn't have a formal platform. I did a lot of missing person, kidnapping, all this work that was kind of like casework, but I didn't have like a website. It was just word of mouth. And it was kind of behind the scenes. when I formally launched something and began offering services, it was constantly my prayer that I would ask Spirit, get rid of me so that you can flow through me. Get me out of the way. I want to be an open valve. I want to be a pure channel so that anything that needs to be said can be said without any filter from Rachel personality or any lifetime personality of mine. And Spirit often would say yes to that and then kind of laugh yeah, duh. And I would often hear this it's not about you anyways, Rachel, almost who cares? And I'm saying that playfully because Spirit wasn't really mocking me, but they were letting me have that energy of lessen the ego. You don't even have to pray from an ego space of worrying that your ego's gonna get in the way, honey. Ain't got nothing to do with you. And this is such a beautiful space and a pure heart of being of service and being wholeheartedly in that service, wholeheartedly giving to the language that your brain knows, that your stories that feel appropriate, and wholeheartedly letting personality come through, and yet knowing all the while this is for someone else. It really has nothing to do with you, even if your stories are relevant, and even if Spirit calls to mind an experience that they want you to share from your past history. It really has no you or identity in it. In that moment, you are an absolute open valve and channel for the purpose that is so much bigger, so much higher, so much grander than the identity of any self. And this is a beautiful space to serve in and to come back to, and it completely relieves any need of the solar plexus to have any experience at all, because the identity, even though it is useful and of service in that moment, really is not the dominant force of energy. It is a service in itself, where the ego and the identity and the personality is just serving the channel that is flooding through it as the highest and purest source of energy for whatever your client may need in that moment. So coming back to that reminder that it's really has nothing to do with you anyways, the service that you provide. And I know that sounds ironic, because of course it does, and of course it uses you, but at the same time, it doesn't. And that is a beautiful balance and equilibrium to hold for yourself. This is how the irony of Spirit always works, right? Where they ask the individual, and yet it's completely not about the individual. The message of the prophet that is used, it's about the message that comes through the prophet. And so often we get caught up in the me that really has very little to do with what Spirit wants to get done. So trust in that it's so much bigger than you. That more than anything will give you peace of soul that doesn't necessarily require any specific strengthening exercises or any specific healing. If you can lean into that deeply, it's always available for you. All right, I'm going to sign off here. Blessings to you guys. We'll be back here next week with another video.